for the safest option.
All right.
That way,
I'm
yeah.
gonna
I was thinking that way she can probably even access it without us having to send
do
or
anything
share
with
it or
it.
anything.
Okay. I'm just gonna let people in.
Okay, cool.
Good evening, everybody. I know it's a little before 6 o'clock, so we're just gonna give it a few moments to let people trickle in here on this very, very cold night in Cincinnati. Hello and good evening.
Hi, Elizabeth. Nice to see you twice in
Hello.
a day.
I feel like it's an honor, truly.
I just told my family, I said, I think I was in a meeting with everyone that will be attending tonight earlier.
I know it's so fun. It's fun to see everybody again.
It's nice.
And I get to see you guys next week too. I'm just like tickled.
You're gonna be sick of us.
Never.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. We love it. Thanks for spending your night with us.
No problem.
Well, to be mindful of everybody's time, it is exactly 6 o'clock. So we will go ahead and get started. Um, you are in a session with Empower You. It's partnering for progress, support youth skill development. So we're going to be talking a lot about how can we support our youth as they're moving through school and aging out. So that's kind of our focus tonight. My name is Elizabeth Wheatmartian. I'm with the Lifespan Transition Center at Ocali, and I am joined by my counterpart, my better half, Jenna Allen.
Other half. We'll just stick with other.
We are a pretty informal, we're pretty informal presenters. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to unmute your mic and talk to us. We'll chat right back, and hopefully we'll fill your hour with some knowledge and we'll have a good time. So thanks for joining us. Um, if you could just let us know who's here tonight. What is your role? You can introduce yourself in the chat, unmute yourself, whatever feels most comfortable for you.
My name is Tara Andrews, and I'm the grandmother of Messiah Tate and Delamonte Andrews, who attend Woodward High School. Delamonte's in the 12th grade, Messiah Tate's in the 11th grade, and they both have disabilities. And also, I am on the LSDMC committee at Woodward High School.
Oh, well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Well, since she introduced out loud, I'll keep it going. I'm Stephanie Steer. I'm a parent mentor here at Cincinnati Public Schools, and I'm a mom to an 18-year-old girl with autism.
Nice. Thank you. And I know we have some other people joining who might not want to be so chatty, and that is okay. All right. Well, like I said, I'm Elizabeth Wheatmartian. I am a transition to adulthood consultant with Ocali. But before I joined Ocali, I worked in a school for students with disabilities at a separate facility. And I taught anything from second grade all the way up to high school. By the time I was leaving my position there, I was a administrator. I started multiple programming and programs for high schoolers and young adults with disabilities, from job internships to summer camps. So I kind of did a little bit of everything. And I also see some people introducing themselves in the chat. Yay. Hi, Keisha. Hi, Sylvia. Hi, iPhone. So nice to meet you guys. And Jenna, do you just want to give a little brief background of who you are?
Sure, yeah, happy to. Again, I'm Jenna. I work with Elizabeth in the Lifespan Transition Center. And prior to this role, I spent most of my career in the adult and high school aged provider space. So providing primarily employment services, but also some other types of community inclusion services. And originally trained as a teacher, so I have just a little bit of education experience too.
Great. Would you mind taking care of the waiting room? Thank you, Jenna. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ocali and just a little bit about the LTC, the Lifespan Transition Center. So Ocali, we are a very mission and vision oriented organization. Our vision is why we do what we do. And so we do this because people with disabilities have the opportunity to live their best lives. Everything we do is centered around how can we have people with disabilities living their best lives in the community that they choose to be in. And what we do, we inspire change and promote access opportunities for people with disabilities. You'll often hear us say A plus B equals C because we truly feel that access plus belonging equals community. And when we allow that access, we create belonging. And when there's belonging, there is community. So that's really, you'll hear us say that a lot when you think about or when you hear people talking about Ocali. And then Ocali informs public policy and develops and deploys practices grounded in linking research to real life. So everything that we do is rooted in research, and we take that very seriously. We want to make sure that we're delivering the best at the best tools and resources that we can that are rooted in foundations that are sturdy. So the Lifespan Transition Center, we have really been here to develop resources that span the lifespan. We recently moved into this early transition planning space, which we will talk about later today, where we're looking at transition through multiple lenses. It's not just this magical age of 14 when the school has decided that's when transition is. We know that transition starts the minute that we know that we have a child. And that we're constantly developing materials and thinking and brainstorming and hoping and dreaming for this little child to grow as they do. But we're constantly evolving with what we're doing. And we're changing what we do as adults to meet the needs of the child. So we started moving into this transition space of early childhood, which I'm really excited about, to help prepare those little young minds to age gracefully, to think big and dream big, and to do whatever it is their little hearts desire. So we're going to be talking about resources that go the lifespan. Very quickly, we'll touch base on a few of our higher level resources that you can unpack later. So this is our Traveling Through Transition track card. So these are what we hand out at fairs and community events, but this is really going to help you get a feel for what the LTC is and what we have developed. So this has been created for if you are just entering this 14 age, this magical age of transition, what is needed if you're just starting out in that journey, or if you've been in it. So Tara, you talked about how you have a senior in high school. You might need resources
Yes.
for that individual. This is where you can come for that too. So you're ready to move from exploring to navigating. So instead of just kind of getting into it, you're really in the thick of it. Now you're ready to keep moving forward. So that second QR code will link you to resources that will help you navigate that next stage of life for your young one.
Okay.
And all of this stuff will be linked. We'll make sure you get a PowerPoint copy sent home. We'll give that to Melissa to send out to everybody. But these QR codes do work. So if you wanted to scan those, feel free.
Okay.
But within this we have a lot of my favorite tools built into this specific card. So the agency navigation tool is going to be in there, which is going to help you navigate all of those agencies as you move into the adult world. And I can't remember if we have a slide dedicated to that or not in this. Okay, perfect. So I won't spend too much time on my favorite tools because we're going to get to them. So we also know that AATA is a huge thing. So AATA being age appropriate transition assessment. This is for a lot of times teachers will refer to AATA as a way to help plan for those transition goals in section 5 of the IEP. So those post-secondary education goals, the integrated employment, and then the independent living goal. A lot of that stems from what do we find in age appropriate transition assessment? What is the youth telling us about them that can help us plan for their future? So we know that it is tricky for teachers to know everything, and we don't expect them to know everything. So we created a guide that will walk teachers through what it is to plan for age appropriate transition assessments. How do we find the appropriate assessments for each child? How then do we administer them and take that data and turn it into meaningful goals and meaningful action steps for a youth to finish? This will help create that plan for a student. So we're really looking at what is it that what are their preferences, what are their interests, what are their needs, and what are their strengths? And how can we use those to create really meaningful adult life goals? And then how can we plan action steps around that? AATA is so important for this. So we really do step out the process of how do we individualize transition assessment to make sure that we're meeting the need of the student while also completing that compliance part of the IEP or other documentation. So all those big PE documents, right? The plan for employment, the plan for education, the individualized support plan. AATA goes into a lot of that. So if we have this really strong foundation of understanding who the student is, then we can create plans that are tailored to them and meaningful to them as they move through school. Another resource that we have are our Take 5 webinars. These are going to be bite-sized pieces of information that are hot topics in transition, anywhere from SSI to independent living to finding a job to understanding transportation and navigating the world of transportation. These are not intended to be deep dives into topics, but really for you to learn a brief portion of that topic so that you can explore if you want to go a little deeper within that. So the Take 5 lives on the LTC website. It can also be found in our first rack card that I shared with you as well, but a lot of great information, and it is broken out by topic. None of our Take 5s are over 10 minutes, so it's a small dedication of your time to get high level information. Any questions so far about anything I've covered? Perfect. All right.
So I'm glad that Elizabeth mentioned the agency navigation tool because it's one of my favorites too. Although I don't know, it's hard to pick a favorite. There's some pretty great stuff here. I like the agency navigation tool because it's a great place to start if you're either new to working with different types of agencies that can help support a youth with disabilities in their journey to adulthood. But it's also helpful even if you've been in this space for a little while, because sometimes it's easy to forget, exactly what different agencies and partners do and how it works and how they communicate with one another. So this guide helps to break out what agencies such as the County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Job and Family Services, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, the education system. It kind of helps to identify who the players on each of those, teams might be. So we oftentimes, when we're talking to youth and families, we'll hear things like, well, I have a caseworker, or I have a counselor. But this tool can kind of help you figure out, oh, if somebody says, that I'm the transition specialist or that I'm the SSA, what does that mean? Who do they work for? And what services are associated with that role? It also goes into eligibility criteria. So if you aren't already working with an agency, you can get an initial idea of whether their services might be available to the youth that you help to support. And it gives contact information to help get connected to agencies, to figure out how to get a referral started, how to get engaged with those services. And at the back of the document, there's also a fillable page too, so that in addition to that higher level overview of information through the rest of the guide, you can also record in names and phone numbers and email addresses of people who are on the team that you're working with, so that that information is all in one place and it doesn't get lost. And then the next tool that we're highlighting really, I feel like, works hand in hand with the agency navigation tool. And it is a project that came out of the agency navigation tool. And that's our transition vocabulary crosswalk. So I like to think of this guide as almost kind of like a glossary, but with a lot of extra value added information as well, to help navigate what can sometimes be a complicated transition space. So where the agency navigation guide gives you that overview of who might be part of an agency and what the agency does, this vocabulary crosswalk provides common acronyms that you might hear during transition planning. It also breaks down some of those titles and roles that people might have. And it can really be a quick guide as you're working within a team to figure out what people are talking about. Of course, we always feel like you should feel comfortable to ask questions. Sometimes we get lost in the alphabet soup of our work and we use too many acronyms or terms that can be confusing because they mean one thing to one agency and another thing to another. So always, of course, feel free to ask questions, but if someone's not immediately available to answer, or if you just want to reference, this guide can really help with helping to decode some of the language and the jargon that we use, and to figure out who people are, what they do, and where they fit into that bigger transition planning process. And then the next tool that we also wanted to highlight kind of as part of this suite, this is our effective practices guide. You may have known this if you've been in this field for a while, if you've been supporting youth for a while, you may have previously known this as evidence-based practices. It's been updated a couple of times and expanded to include some additional promising and effective practices as well. So these are all still based in research, but some of them are newer. They're not quite at that level of evidence-based, which is why we changed the title. Regardless, this guide provides a high-level overview of several clusters of supports that are typically used as we support a youth's successful transition from high school to adulthood, and then breaks those down into subsets of practices. So this is a great guide, I always feel like, for educators, for job coaches, but also for parents and people who might be supporting youth more informally too. While there are quite a few more formalized supports and practices that are outlined in this document, there are also just common things that we can all do to help support youth. So things like trying to develop a prompting strategy to help youth learn a task, or how to use visual supports more effectively to help a youth organize their schedule and their day. There's also information about how teams can work and plan together to make sure that the supports that they're providing are effective across environments, so that youth aren't necessarily getting confused by learning something one way at school and then practicing it another way at home. It can really bring teams together so that there's a more cohesive feel to the supports that are being provided, and so that teams can more easily share what's working and what's not working. And like many of these other guides, there's kind of a bonus section in the back. In this case, it's a tool to help teams think about what supports they're currently using, what's working well for the youth, and what some good next steps might be to help the youth continue to develop skills and gain independence towards adulthood. And we also have, I should have mentioned, all these tools are available on the Employment First website, in addition to being available on our Ocali website. One of the other tools that's available through the Employment First website are these tools for multi-agency teams. So some of you, I think, are already part of multi-agency planning teams. These are teams that bring professionals from a variety of fields together to support a youth in a coordinated way. So a lot of times these teams are composed of an education professional. They may also have a representative from OOD, for instance, if the youth is enrolled in those employment services. If the youth is eligible or potentially eligible for developmental disability services, there may be members of those teams. And then we also see oftentimes other associated services, so mental and behavioral health. You might have other professionals such as PTs and OTs on this team. But these tools help those professionals to be planful about their work. Some of the tools that we just mentioned, like the agency navigation guide, go hand in hand with this work. It's not just for parents and youth, it's for professionals to know about each other too. And we provide these tools to help teams think about how they can most effectively work together to support youth, because we know that research shows us that when youth are supported by a team that's composed of multiple agencies all working together, the outcomes are better than when those services might be more siloed or splintered and the teams aren't communicating well or working in tandem. So these planning tools can, really walk teams through all the way from just forming and becoming a team to becoming a high performing team that really works well throughout a region or a district.
So then we have our backwards planning tools. These are, and let me drop the link for you guys too. I've been trying to do that as I talk and it's not working. But our backwards planning tools are designed to think backwards. So just like planning a trip, you always have your destination in mind before you start buying your tickets, planning the road trip, getting the hotel, right? The same is true for our youth that we're creating goals for. We need to know where we're going before we figure out how to get there. So we have a person-centered thinking and backwards planning template and tool that guides you through the process of backwards planning. It is a step-by-step guide. It's going to walk you through the process. It's going to provide you examples and help you really develop a comprehensive plan that is tailored specifically to your youth, who they're connected to, and what kind of support they're receiving and how to best utilize that. So it's really going to take a look at your students' PINs, so the preferences, needs, interests, and strengths. It's going to look at who is available in this person's life, in this youth's life, to help them get from A to B, and then help you break down tangible, manageable steps to make sure that you're achieving that ultimate goal. So this is a really great tool. It can be utilized by teams. It can be utilized by a youth themselves, by a family member, or everyone. So really versatile, and it is lovely. Next, we have our Journey suite of resources. This is also found on the Employment First website. And we have 3 different types of resources within this. We have the webinars, which has also started to dovetail into a community of practice of like-minded professionals in the area of working with complex youth. in this transition space. So each quarter we pick a topic and discuss what are some barriers that are happening within this area, what are some strengths that you're seeing, and then how can we work together to make this area better for us. We also bring in a content expert who does an activity and a short lesson with our community of practice. So it is very structured. Our next one is at the end of the month. It is January, I want to say the 27th. It's the last Monday of, or December. No, what am I saying? January 27th. It's the last Monday of January. Holy cannoli. The holidays can't come soon enough for me. So all are welcome to that. Educators, other professionals, family members, everyone is welcomed. We're really just trying to create change in the system and really make sure that it's meaningful and engaging to students. In January, we're going to be talking about curriculum and instruction. And then our last one of the quarter is going to be all about multi-agency planning teams and how to get started or how to expand on that. Then we have our journey shortcuts. So before we had hour-long webinars on topics, and we did that for about 4 years. So we have now created the shortcuts. So we've taken every journey webinar that we've done in the past 4 years and then broke them down into a bite-sized piece, whether that be from 1 minute to 5 minutes, just giving you a high level idea or a portion of the webinar. So you can watch that to see if you want to go back and watch the full webinar. So if you like what you heard and you wanted to dig deeper into that and really watch 45 more minutes of it, you can click and link directly to the old webinar. And it also provides you with all the resources that were found within that webinar or discussed. And then finally, we have the Journey Toolkits. This is probably our most comprehensive resource that we have in the Journey suite of resources. This really is intended for teaching teams and schools who work with youth with complex and unique support needs. So we walk them through 4 major topics that we tend to get a lot of questions about: family engagement, curriculum and instruction, adult life visioning and age appropriate transition assessment. And I'm drawing a blank on my 4th one, multi-agency planning. There it is. So we really go into all 4 of those. We start you off by starting with a transition basics. So we want everybody on your team to come up with the same basic level of information on each of those 4 topical areas. Then we bring you back as a team, walk you through some activities, and then we have you complete a SWOT. So we help you figure out what is the root cause of what you need to do more of. Within that root cause, then you can expand your knowledge. So once you have determined a space where you would like to learn more or do more as a school team, we walk you through the next steps of that to make your team think harder, dig deeper, and really understand what are the next steps of what that area is bringing you. And then we also provide you with ways to sustain your team. So it's not just this one and done thing. We really come up with ideas on sustainability, how to continue growing in transition and exploring some areas of development for your team. So love our Journey Toolkit. So if you are a school team who wants to, enhance their transition practices, I would direct you there because we do step-by-step that out for you. And then finally, the last thing that we're going to talk about with just the Employment First website, or not really our last thing, but kind of coming to an end before we dig into early transition planning, is our Community Life Guide. This is in partnership with DODD. And these are intended for youth to walk through themselves and adults. So we have 4 different topical areas here. We have building financial and digital skills, moving to adult healthcare, the Speak Up, Stay Safe community health and safety training, and then the Job Seekers Guide. All of these are written in plain language. They're developed like modules, so you can walk through step by step with them. As a teacher, I use them with my class and taught taught lessons around these, but they are intended to be self-paced too. So youth or family members can go in here and explore those topics and kind of figure out activities around each of those areas. So a really great place to start, especially for, I know we have some people on the call that have seniors. Moving from that pediatric care to adult healthcare can be really scary. So I'm really excited that we have this module to help walk you through that process and help maybe alleviate some of the stressors around that.
So one of the projects that we wanted to highlight tonight is our early transition planning project. And we've been engaged in this collaborative project for, I think, just a little over 3 years now. We've been working with the Department of Developmental Disabilities on this project, as well as the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. And we've pulled in quite a few partners at local levels as well to help inform our work as we move forward with this. But this came out of some conversations and planning with the Ohio Employment First Task Force, where we recognize that even though, starting at 14 gives teams and gives youth and families a few years before high school graduation and before attaining the age of adulthood to start planning for transition, that it would be much more helpful in a lot of cases for families and for youth and for their teams to start thinking about and planning about transition a little bit earlier, because some families and some folks are feeling really rushed. When we start at 14, it can feel like there's a lot to do in a very short amount of time between that time and when the youth exits school. So these early transition planning resources, like the other resources that we've highlighted, we wanted to make sure that we were choosing resources that are backed up by research, that are user-friendly and approachable, and that meet people's needs. And what we did was that we built out a page on the Employment First website, which we'll show you in a moment. And then we also developed some new tools as well. So if you go to the early transition planning website, you'll be greeted by a video that helps explain the project and how some of our resources are broken out. We've primarily organized the resources here around the topics of starting talking. These are things that even in preschool ages, even like kindergarten, first grade, we can start encouraging adults to do with the youth that they support. Some of the activities are very simple. It really, when we say start talking, that's really what we mean. It's just starting to have these conversations like we would with any youth about what are your goals and dreams for adulthood? What would you like to be when you grow up? What would you like to live? Starting to talk to them about just different aspects of adult life. And then we also have a set of resources that we've developed around this theme of connecting for support, because that is another area that we've heard families appreciating and needing more of, and that also research backs up as an effective support practice for families and youth. So these resources focus on helping families connect with other families, and also helps youth sometimes to connect to other youth who are in the same situation. So these are things like parent-to-parent networks, the Family Resource Network of Ohio, probably some groups that you've been involved with or that you've connected with. And then we wanted to expand on these resources. We started by sort of gathering, here's what's out there, here's how we think that it can help support people. And as we started rolling those things out, we were hearing that there was still a little bit of a void. And that's where this new tool that we're going to be highlighting tonight came out of. So you might be familiar with the ELSA. It's the Employability Life Skills Assessment. It's another tool that's available on the Ocali website or on the Employment First website. It's not age specific. It was always designed to be a tool that can be used with youth at any age. But because of the focus on employment, we were finding that people tend to gravitate towards this tool around more of a traditional 14 plus transition planning age. But we wanted to take some of the concepts from the ELSA and kind of age it down a little bit, make it a little bit more approachable for people who are supporting youth at younger ages. And that led us to developing the Ocali Life Skills for Adulthood framework, or the OLAF. Much like the ELSA, it is arranged into broad categories that are then kind of broken down into some sub-skills and categories. And it's designed to be a way for adults who support youth to help gauge where youth is at with some critical skills for adulthood, and then to think about what might some next steps be, what are some areas to prioritize. And we developed this guide primarily with the ages of and grades of K through 5 in mind. But it is flexible. You could certainly use this guide for youth at any stage. So you could use it before kindergarten. It could certainly continue to be used after 5th grade. We were quite intentional about not affiliating any of the skills that are outlined in the OLAF with grade and age norms. So you won't see anything like that in the document. You won't see anything along the lines of by age 6, a youth should be able to. I think you'll see as we go through it, each of the skill sets are kind of broken out into discrete teachable steps that any youth, can start with wherever they're at. So let's take a look. We're going to walk you through a little bit of the ELSA or of the OLAF so that you can become a little bit more familiar with it. And we'll also make sure that you all get a copy of this to peruse at your leisure too. But it starts with our table of contents, and all of these are clickable. The document itself, we do recommend that people start with the introduction and perhaps peruse the user guide at the beginning. But once you're familiar with the general layout of the OLAF, we would encourage you to jump around. It's not meant to be read cover to cover, front to back. So we tried to organize it in a way that if you're looking for specifically ways to help a youth develop skills in communication and relationships, for example, you can just jump straight to that section. None of these skill sets are presented in any kind of a linear order. We know that, self-care skills, for instance, don't just naturally, happen before the skill of making choices. Those are things that might happen in different orders for different youth, and that's fine. We also know that people have different priorities at different times too. So we didn't want to present this in any kind of a way that would lead anyone to think that some of these skills are more important or less important than others. They all are. There are plenty of places for people to jump in to figure out where the youth is at now, what skills can we build on, and then where might be some critical areas for growth that we can look at in the near future. So we're going to walk you through how this is organized, just so that you can familiarize yourself a little bit more with this tool and have a little bit of an idea about how you might start incorporating it into your practice or into the supports that you provide for youth.
Yeah, so thanks, Jenna. We, like Jenna was saying, we were very intentional with how we designed this. So we did try to color code everything so that it was easy for the user to flip through and figure out exactly where they were going. And we did create 5 domains. This is what is at the top of this, in the bold color. We have 5 domains that are broken out. So we have self-care, general work habits, language and literacy, communication and relationships with peers and adults. This is going to be the overarching theme of what we're trying to talk about. And then underneath, you'll see the subdomains. There's going to be 3 to 6 subdomains within each overreaching skill. So under each subdomain, we then have listed subskills. And subskills are going to be more specific teachable skills. So you have the overarching, Then you have the subdomains, which break that overarching feeling or that overarching theme down. And then our sub-skills are what we feel like are going to be those tangible teaching moments that you can progress to. At the bottom, you'll see a priority box under each of the subdomains and sub-skills. You'll see an L, an M, and a high. This means, is this a low priority, a medium high priority, or a high priority? And you can mark each of those subdomains at what level of priority you're looking at. So this is a quick way to say, hey, this is a really high level of priority for me. These are skills that I really want to make sure that my youth are learning this year. So it's just an easy way to reference that and make sure that you're keeping track of all of it. We were also really intentional as you flip through, after you get through the sub skills and domains, the next page after that, you're going to see that domain again. So you know that you're in the same category. Then you can rate it at your overall priority level. So is this a low, medium, or high priority for my youth? Then we have everyday teaching and support strategies. We tried to come up with some really tangible and easy ways for our users to take this and run with it. Everything that we wrote in here doesn't require a paid subscription. It doesn't require anything special. It's just things that can be found around your house, or things that you're already doing with your youth and maybe expanding on it a little bit more. So these are truly everyday teaching and support strategies to help your youth achieve the skills that you've listed as a priority. And then finally, we have team notes. It is a space, it is editable PDF, so you can go in there and type. If you print it off, you'll have space to jot down. But we did find that we did make this a priority for us to put in there because we want this to be a living, breathing document, something that parents can take to meetings, that teachers can bring out when they're doing progress reporting or whatever else comes to mind. We want to make sure that this is growing with the student and that you guys are taking notes and being able to refer back to them. So who exactly can use the OLAF? And we kind of touched base on this, and I think this is truly the beauty around this product that we made, this tool that we developed, is that anybody can use it. Youth can use it. Parents can use it, caregivers, other family members, teachers, OTs, PTs, the librarian, a youth pastor, a coach. It doesn't matter. We really developed this as a way for anybody to have access to it. We were so intentional with using everyday plain language that it didn't require you to have a dictionary to get out and say, what are all these acronyms meaning, right? So I'm just really excited about this, and I don't know if you can see it in my face or the inflection of my voice, but I'm really proud of that fact that anybody can pick this up, look at it, read it, understand it, and take something away, whether it be an everyday teaching strategy, whether it be a skill that resonated with you that you want to develop a goal around for your youth, or whether it was this idea of, oh my gosh, I should teach my student how to use a cell phone because that's going to be really important for them later on. Anybody can use this. We know learning is not linear. We know growing is not linear. We take paths that take us down different roads and lead us to different things. And the OLAF is just like that. And that's how we designed it. So I'm really proud of that fact. And then we have, again, a page dedicated to just universal teaching strategies. If this is not an all-encompassing list because there are so many that you can use. But what we did is we talked with parents, we talked with teachers, we talked amongst each other and within our work group and took feedback of multiple people across various stages of their career. And we came up with these universal teaching strategies that anybody can use that are effective in all ages and stages of life. So again, just an opportunity for you to look at this. If you don't look at anything else on the OLAF and you just look at these everyday and universal teaching strategies, you can learn something and start using them with the person that you're working with, or trying to develop goals around. So again, everything was just so intentional and methodical and thought out. And we really tried to look at audiences far and wide. So this isn't just for teachers, or this isn't just for family members. It's a collaborative tool, and it was designed collaboratively. And I think that really reflects in this. Jenna, am I missing anything?
No, I think the only thing I would add about, one of the things that was really cool to hear as we were developing these strategies is that we were hearing directly from parents about some of these strategies. They were having these sort of aha moments of realization of, oh, I'm doing some of these things, so it was also helping, I think, especially parents, but other adults who support youth, to better recognize and appreciate what they're doing, and to really think about how they can build on that too. So it, I think, helped a lot of the adults who were early testers of this tool to maybe kind of move on that spectrum from feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing. Am I doing any of the right things, to, oh, I am doing this. I'm just naturally doing some of these things. I am, providing a narration as I go about my day. I am offering choices on a regular basis. I am helping my child to process through, difficult to understand situations, and just to see that these are things that tend to come naturally to folks, and that, you can really find yourself here. In some way, shape, or form, almost no matter what you're doing, and find some good stuff to continue building on and working into other parts of your day and of your week and your life. So we wanted to walk through another, just kind of a little more concrete of an example. I know for me, I like to really see something in use when I'm getting familiar with something for the first time. So we included towards the end of this document, which I'll show you in a moment, a tool for anyone to be able to use as they're kind of going through and identifying areas that they want to focus on, to help summarize some of that information and share it with important people on a youth's team. So in this example, for this particular youth, this is a youth who has already some good skills in this area of relationships with others, but where the adults who support him have identified that this would be a good area for growth for him right now. I think Elizabeth kind of highlighted that when we think about how to prioritize areas, there's no right or wrong way to do this. On the ELSA, even though it is sort of a companion document to this one, it is a little different. It's a little bit more like an assessment. It has ratings that go along with each of the categories. There's a graph at the end that kind of helps guide teams to think about things. In this case, we wanted it to be a little bit more natural, a little more fluid. So it could, the priority for this might be high because this is an area where they feel like, yeah, this youth is ready for these next steps. It's just good timing. Or maybe there's something coming up, maybe we're preparing for something like a summer camp experience or next year at school, and thinking about this is where we want to be when that next thing arrives. Whatever it is that guides that priority, we can identify where the youth is at, and then we can look at these everyday teaching and support strategies that we can start pulling in. So once we've kind of done that, we can go to the section at the back of this document where we have a summary that allows us to check off what did we identify as priority skills to work on right now. And there's a simple planning tool that we can use to figure out how can we support this youth across settings, because we know that when we pull in, as we talked about with multi-agency planning, when we pull in additional partners, when we support youth consistently and well across settings, they're much more likely to attain success. So as I mentioned, in this particular example, which is included in the document, this youth, we identified that there are some issues with understanding some common norms, practicing healthy boundaries, and understanding and accepting consequences. So once we've identified those, we can then kind of pull from those suggested universal strategies and the everyday support strategies and start figuring out which of those would work probably best for this youth based on things like those preferences, interests, and skills that we already know about them. And then who could do that? And we wanted to provide this example that, of course, people who are in that inner circle of support, the primary caregivers for this youth, which in this case are mom and dad and grandma, they can be involved in this, but also teachers, also paraprofessionals and related support specialists, and even peers and older siblings can be part of this process too. Some of these strategies that we're highlighting don't even necessarily have to come from professionals or even full adults. These could come from either, other same age peers that have strong skills in these areas, or as I mentioned, even older siblings, older friends. So finding places where we can communicate, hey, these are ways that we can help this youth to develop these target skills through just really simple everyday strategies. And then get to that next level so that then we can move on to the next set of priority skills. We can just keep coming back and reusing this same process and this same tool over and over again to measure progress and to think about where we want to focus. And I will mention too that one of the concerns that came up when we were piloting this initially and we were going through some initial conversations, Elizabeth is going to talk momentarily about how we pull this into the planning process in a more concrete way. But we did talk about sort of the risk of some of these strategies becoming a goal bank of sorts. And we didn't want, teams to feel hemmed in and to do this copy pasting of these strategies. But I think this example really shows that it's a jumping off point. And again, for somebody who, like me, is kind of a concrete thinker, this can help me to think about when I am a parent in a meeting and a professional says, what kind of goals would you like to work on for your child? And I say, what do you like? What do you mean? What kind of goals would we be talking about? Say, oh, okay, I see. Like we could talk about these things like helping somebody make smart choices, helping somebody to advocate well for themselves, helping someone to problem solve in real life situations, and then customizing that plan for support around that particular youth.
So before we move into everyone's favorite, planning and documentation, does anybody have any questions so far about anything we covered? I know we have thrown so much at you in a very short amount of time, but always happy to answer any questions. All right. Well, if you think of any, feel free to throw them in the chat. We're here for you. And I will talk like an auctioneer like I normally do. So sorry that I'm a fast talker. But we won't spend too much time on planning and documentation, but a general overview, and then we'll have some time to discuss at the end here. But what I love about this tool is that it is a great way to think about how are we gonna create a compliance document? I love IEPs. I love writing them. I found it an opportunity to highlight and showcase everything that my student could do. And when I started looking at an IEP in a more positive way, they became a lot more fun to write. And so I feel like this OLAF can help you do just that. So within the universal teaching strategies, we talk about like, how can you set up your classroom, your learning and your play spaces? How can we be really intentional with how we design spaces that our youth are already using to be learning opportunities? How can we set up a reinforcement strategy like a token economy, which not only teaches our students multiple skills and choice making, but it can be really effective in helping get target behavior accomplished. Also within universal teaching strategies, we're allowing the autonomy of the learner to take ownership of what they want in their life and how can we help them create the life that they want. And those universal teaching strategies allow for that. And then it also can help us identify accommodations and modifications for our learner to make sure that they are getting the best education and they are receiving all the support that they need to be successful. Within that subdomain area, this is where you're really going to look at influencing learning goals and objectives. So when you're looking at an IEP, I'm going to talk about an IEP specifically because that's the document that I am probably the most familiar with, which within that, you're looking at sections 5 and 6. That's going to help you develop those really intentional goals for our student. And like Jenna said, we did not create this as a goal bank, and I want to shout that from a mountaintop because goal banks are not individualized. But what we did create is a conversation starter to create individualized goals that are really meaningful for a youth and are intentional and will help them achieve the things that they want to achieve in life. And then those everyday teaching and support strategies. This is going to influence our interactions in teaching with our youth, whether we're a family member or a teacher. Those are really going to help us identify how are we interacting with our young person and how are we helping them achieve that next stage in life. So when we're thinking about the IEP, while we're thinking about the IEP and the OLAF, these are the places that I envision this document really helping support writing those individualized support plans. The future planning statement, where we get to talk about all our hopes and dreams for our students, what they want from the future. When I was a teacher, when I was writing my future planning statements, I always found it really interesting to get a statement from the student themselves, from the caregiver, and then from the teacher. And then I like to compare those statements to make sure that we're aligning goals. Because what I see as a teacher is not what a parent sees at home and vice versa. And what a student sees in themselves. And it is always really interesting to see that. And the OLAF can help guide some of those future planning conversations. If you're getting stuck and you're looking for the right words to put in that future planning statement, flip through the OLAF and see if there's a skill that pops out to you that's like, oh, this would be really helpful if we explored this a little bit more and expanded upon this. Or, oh, this made me think of how I want my student to be able to get a driver's license or ride the bus on their own. And what are all those skills that are needed for that? Within the profile, again, we can look at how are we rating priority levels? What have we worked on? What are the notes that I've taken? What have worked for a student? That can go in that profile. In the transition planning, we're looking at those 3 specific goals, specifically in an IEP, are post-secondary education, integrative, competitive, and employment, and then also independent living. Those subdomains are going to give you ideas, and those sub skills are going to give you ideas as to what can go in that section. That also goes really nicely with the annual goal setting too. So those section 6 goals, right? For your core competency areas. This can be a really great conversation, whether it be a goal or an activity within the IEP. That's where I really see that fitting in and how this can be utilized, not only in that K-5 space, but across the lifespan, right? So when we're getting into that high school age, there are going to be skills in here that some of our students don't have yet, and that's okay. You'll notice that with adults. I don't have some of the skills that are listed in here yet because we're not perfect. We're imperfect humans, and that's what makes us so great, that we can always learn and grow and thrive. And that's why, again, I keep coming back and saying that's why I love this tool, but I really do, because it is this catch-all. It is not specific to an age or grade or demographic. It is really just what are skills that we need in order to be successful humans in life. And that is what the OLAF is. And it can be used and translated in multiple ways. So when we're thinking about implementation, and this is more of questions that I have for you guys, so feel free to, unmute yourself or throw in the chat. How do you see yourself using this tool with youth that you support, or any of the tools that we discussed today? Because I know we spent a lot of time on Olaf, but we also talked about a lot of lovely other tools and resources. So how do you see yourself using those with the youth that you support? How could you use the tool to spark ideas and enrich planning team conversations? How could this tool fit into your existing approaches and practices? Or do you foresee any challenges or barriers to use? So if you want to answer any or all of those questions, or something else, you just have a question or you want to say something, feel free.
Yes, Tara Andrews. My 16-year-old just recently had an IEP meeting.
Mhm.
And this was in October. I haven't got a complete copy of the IEP yet. I have services. I have Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services. I had OOD, but the particular person never showed up for a meeting, kept going back and forth. So now we have a new person. And also he has cerebral palsy. And I have my own issues. This is my grandson. I have my own issues. So I don't feel like going back and forth to Children's Hospital when he could for speech therapy because he is dyslexic. But you couldn't tell it because I take good care of him. And they told me no, he couldn't get it in school. So when I joined the LSDMC committee, oh, lo and behold, the speech therapist was there. So I asked her, can he get this? She says, yes. I filled out a form. I'm having a huge problem. I'm trying not to get legal aid involved because Cincinnati Children's Hospital is helping me also. And they asked me, did I want child help? That means they're going to put a referral into legal aid. I got a lot going on. I'm tired. I don't understand. Why are they giving me such a hard time?
That's a lot.
Yes. And he has cerebral palsy. And I don't get it. Then I asked him, have you worked with this person? Have you worked? Nope. I ask him questions all the time. So, they just we just now getting services for him. And really last year. I just found out this year they could have started this at 14.
Hey, Grandma.
Hey.
This is Stephanie. So just
Hey.
to circle back, I'm the parent mentor here with CPS. So this might be something that I can help you with. So to interject, I'll put my email in the chat. So that way, go ahead and email me tomorrow. I'll have your contact and you and I can follow up on this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
That's something I can help you with.
Okay. Thank you.
And Stephanie's great. And so I'm sure she will get that all squared away for you. But it is a lot. It is good to recognize that this is not easy and it is a complicated process. And you're not alone. So know that you are not the only one going through it.
This is a good example of that collaborative, multi-agency team support and that peer-to-peer support that can be so important sometimes. So thanks, Stephanie, for jumping in.
Yes. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
And we should have mentioned too, I did realize if you were poking around on the early planning site and looking for the OLAF, it is not quite up yet. It will be up any day now, very, very soon, but you are some of the first folks to see it in its final form. So if you're looking for it, it's not available today, but do go back and visit the early planning site if it's something that interests you, because our web team is working on getting it finalized and ready for launch before the holidays, I think.
Well, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. But please feel free to ask us anything. That's everything we have for you this evening. I do hope you learned something or got something out of tonight's presentation, but we'll stick around for a little bit if anybody has any questions.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It was great.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is really helpful information. Just to remind everybody, we'll add this info to the Padlet and it'll be sent out. People that were not able to attend tonight while this is recorded, that we will make this available either by email or we can connect. And we'll put this on our website eventually is our goal here. So thank you so much, you guys.
No, thank you guys. Have a great holiday season, everybody.
Thank
Mhm.
you too.
Yes. Okay.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, done speaking, I guess.
Good job, y'all. Have a good
Oh.
evening.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for sharing your little guy with us too.
I know, he's so cute. All
Not-
right.
I was a little distracted there at one moment. I was like, oh, he's
I
getting
know.
so
He's-
big.
I know, he's getting so big. All right. Well, I'm gonna sign off.
Sounds good.
Um,
All
right.
right.
Have a good night.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah,
Bye.
talk to you tomorrow. Bye, guys.